Good day, everyone. My name is Matt Tranchen, and I serve as president of March for Science. I have the privilege of being joined by my friend and colleague and partner, Hita Lakhani, Global South Focal Point for Youngo. Hita, how are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. How about you?
I'm well. We have a really special guest joining us. Will you please introduce her?
Absolutely. Today we have with us Paloma Costa from Brazil. Paloma is a really good friend of mine. We met back in 2019 in Abu Dhabi. And since then, we've been in touch. We're part of a group that we've taken the liberty to call ourselves the Super 30. But outside of that, Paloma is a lawyer, an amazing climate activist, and an absolutely great friend. Paloma, how are you doing today?
Hey everyone, I'm doing super fine. I'm so glad to see you all here today.
Hey, Paloma.
Hey Matt.
So, Paloma, you are a member of the Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group, and you're the representative for Latin America. Can you talk about that role and that experience over the last year?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Matt. We started the Youth Advisory Group in July, and since then, our first role is to advise the Secretary General into the recovery plan with the 6 positive action on climate. And to do this role, we started doing some sort of consultations within our regions. And it was really great because in Latin America, for example, we were able to start a network that is becoming really strong. We now have representatives from all countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. And yeah, and I feel having this part and to represent together with Hita and Nyongo, it's super important for us young people so we can have a formal space to put our demands and participate indeed.
Now, has this ever happened before? I mean, I know there's been a lot of lip service given to including young people in the development of climate action policies, but is there a precedent for this?
I feel like we have inside the United Nations system, constituencies such as Youngo, the major group of youth and children, but to have an advisory board to the Secretary General, this is the first time. And I hope as the first group, we can open doors for other young people that will come along and that we can really represent and make the most of it in our position.
I love that. And you all issued a report at the end of last year, and this was the culmination of all 7 of you working together, based on the consultations that you had with the countries under your respective regions. What kind of key insights or actions would you like to highlight?
I feel in our report, as we did a global consultation together, but we also took the insights of regional consultations that we did, for example, in partnership with the Youth Adaptation Network. I feel what represents the most my region is when we talk about green opportunities under the forest people economy, because I see this is a way out for the Amazon to stand and say how she is more valuable up the forest there than with us destroying it for cattle or anything else.
Sure.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the Amazon, how do you think other young people, all our viewers, whether young or young at heart, how do you think they can support you in all the work that you're doing?
I feel for example, we did a lot of campaigns of the products that you are consuming with. I think when you are conscious about the things that you consume, the things that you use, if you know where they come from, and if you prefer, instead of buy like products that come from big companies, to buy products directly with the ones that are producing, you can be like at this point like really giving the what is needed for a value chain to work. I mean, when I think about forest people economy, I always think like about my friends doing their own plantations, learning with the elders, engaging other youths inside the communities. And when you think on what you buy and you buy a product like this, you are like you are giving life and more life. You are not like buying destruction and whatever.
I think, Paloma, it's with the internet and kind of the age of information, it's really empowered people to live more intentionally and understand the impact that they're having with each of their choices. We've the Amazon, was all over the news last year with the tragic fires, but tragically, like most existential crises, it faded off from being on everyone's radar when the next crisis hit, which of course was the pandemic. What's the state of the Amazon now?
Well, this is really sad news because first, when we think about the Amazon, we have to think that this is the region that has been excluded from the basic needs to deal with the COVID situation. So, in this Brazilian world where we incentivate, where like even the government incentivates like illegal minings, loggers inside territories, inside protected areas, the numbers of COVID cases are rising and rising and rising, and there is no basic needs that are being covered there. So people, even though fighting for the Amazon to stay stand, they are fighting for their lives, they are fighting for COVID, and they are fighting with fires that each and every year since 2019, I think it was the biggest one, and 2020, and I hopefully not 2021 it will be the same, but the number of fires, they started a lot, and we burned like areas and areas of deep Amazon rainforest just because of misleading and bad policies that do not take care of what is needed in there. And yeah, and if I might add something, I would say like I would say like that this should not like make us feel sad and disappoint us. This indeed should make us like stand up and fight for the Amazon. I mean, if we want to fight and deal with the climate crisis, honestly, we have to fight for all forests, for all ecosystems that are still like up and still protected. So I feel like if you want to fight together with us for the Amazon, like incentivize your own governments to not make agreements that end up in more deforestation, that they incentivize like civil society and full participation, because I feel like this is how we should be going as a global community.
Well, as the only American on this panel having this conversation, and with a newly elected government who's currently negotiating with the Brazilian government on new trade negotiations, what message would you have for Americans when it comes to how the Biden administration is engaging the Bolsonaro administration?
Well, I would like to say exactly what Chief Hawney said to the President Biden. And he shared like a message. He's like one of the big and most respected indigenous leaders here from Brazil. And it is, we as civil society, as indigenous communities, as quilombolas, as young people, we've been like protecting the Amazon. So if you are thinking on doing some kind of trade agreement or negotiating, it's with us that you should be talking about too. So I incentivize like all Americans to start these conversations. We are open. We want to conversate, and we want like as everyone to make the Amazon stand, and that the people in there could live like peacefully and with hope, and have the opportunity for future generations to also enjoy these beautiful places, which is the Amazon. So we are together. Count on us.
No, I love that. We're all together. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're here as a global community. And when we talk about what people can do, right? When you said we should all stand together, um, within the international negotiations on climate change, do you think there is something where we can do to put pressure on the governments? How do you think we can help amplify? Because the recent report that came out by the UN frequency clearly says we're not close to where we are, right? We're nowhere close to getting to our goal of less than 2 degrees or even 1.5 degrees, which is important for survival. So, what is the sort of pressure that we can build on, and how do you think we can do that?
Well, if I might share like a personal experience, the first thing I would say is like it's much more easy to change our own conscience to try changing like bad decisions that destroy what remains of our world and our existence. So saying that, when you talk, Hita, about pressure, we did a lot. Like we tried everything. We did like reports. You know how much work we put on this. We tried to engage like young people. We did like a youth climate summit, for God's sake. We put it like lots of young people to stand together, to take the streets of New York and say what they were thinking of, and still there is no ambitions in the past climate ambition and climate action summit. The reports are out. We know we are nowhere close to reach 1.5 degrees. We were talking about Brazil. The main thing that put the emissions of Brazil is deforestation. So fire means that we are emitting like much more than we were expected. And when I feel like young people, this last weekend I demanded like my government in the judicial court of São Paulo for them to change their NDCs. For me, it's not reachable, and it's not even like I feel they disrespect me when they show an NDC like this that has no ambition. And I feel like all young people, we should be like demanding it judicially. We should be going to formal spaces. We should be screaming. As Greta said, the world is on fire, and it really is, like literally.
So, Paloma, you're talking about raising NDCs as, requiring more global ambition. And I think there was the NDC synthesis report came out last month that showed just how wildly off the mark we are. Of course, the current NDCs, which are woefully inadequate, we also struggle with the problem of most countries not even being on track with achieving the already inadequate climate goals. So where do we go from that? I mean, right? Because we're in this situation, and look, there are, I think, island governments actually have probably, consistently put forth the most ambitious NDCs. And ironically are, of course, the countries that have contributed the least amount and are suffering the greatest impact. How can we all be more like island nations and follow their lead, especially understanding, and the world is when it comes to the global marketplace of clean energy, we're so much farther along than we were when the Paris Agreement was established. There are financial opportunities with transitioning to clean energy and a resilient infrastructure. But what would you say to people who want to get involved are looking at their governments that are already not achieving their existing climate goals with an understanding that they need to be even more ambitious?
Well, first I would say like this is why I respect so much the youth movement, because when we see ourselves in situations like this, we just do it for ourselves. Like I mean, I always remember when I was seeing the national education law here in Brazil that talked about, and I saw what was the content about climate. It was something nowhere that anyone could understand what is a climate emergency. And I feel like we saw that, we tried changing it in the formal way, but it took so many times that we decided to do our own climate education program. So I feel like if you are young and you see your government are not doing enough, just do it for yourself. Like you have like a global youth community that will support you, and we have been trying to do this for a long time, so I might say we have like a little bit of experience. But I cannot say, like, for example, us three here, we come like from big countries that could be leading the response on climate emergency. But I mean, hopefully Biden will lead this so we can follow you in this process.
And Paloma, something to your point about young people, President Joe Biden is President Biden because of young people in America. And so, the opportunity to, if you're dealing with a government that doesn't treat the climate crisis seriously or even recognize it as a crisis, and you live in a democracy, that should be pointed out.
Yeah.
That is something that presents an opportunity to make it clear to future leaders what is required if they want to have that privilege to represent our countries. And so you're right. It's here in the U.S. We now are treating climate change as a climate crisis and treating it seriously. I think there still needs to be a tremendous amount of pressure placed on governments now that they're in power to follow through on promises. But we'll get around to that the next show, the next time we all get together. But I know you had a question.
Yeah, just with all the conversation that we've had, right, it can get really heavy. And as someone working in the field, looking at everything that's happening, looking at the lack of ambition, looking at the lack of action that we're seeing from the international community, is there anything you want to share with other young people? What keeps you going? What motivates you to continue waking up every day and do what you're doing?
This one is easy. It's of course like you, Hita, my friends from Super 30, my friends in the community. I mean, if it wasn't for these people like waking up every day to stand up and say the truth and fight for the climate crisis with the responsibility needed, I mean, I wouldn't be doing the same. So thank you to all of you that wake up every day and fight together. I mean, we are going to change things. We will.
We will. Together we will.
Yeah.
Paloma, you're an inspiration, and it's a privilege to know you and connect with you. Let's end it with this. I can kind of peek through your jean jacket, and I'm seeing a symbol and a phrase that it means a lot to the movement. Science, not silence. So look, let's end with this. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, came out with its 1.5 degree special report a couple years ago. And since it's been released, it's been blocked at COP24 and COP25. As we come into COP26, there, of course, is a growing movement to formally welcome the 1.5 degree report and actually utilize it to inform international climate change negotiations. Can you talk about the significance of that report finally and formally being welcomed at COP26?
I mean, like this report, as you said, like shows exactly that we are so far away on reaching what we agreed as the world, to have like a quality life with health and everything. So I mean, accepting this in COP26, it will be like that we will be able like to finally compromise ourselves on really like going to the 1.5, on really having ambitions, because if we ignore what science says, we will keep like putting indices and putting out like we will keep like being not ambitious, and we will keep like in the same situation that we will only get worse and worse and worse. And I mean, like putting out this agreement and making countries compromise to it, it's a way for us to see like really a way out of this crisis that everyone is suffering, once more than others, but everyone together suffering it.
Well, you opened this conversation with talking about the importance of recognizing the climate crisis for what it was as an emergency. And that begins with recognizing and accepting the science that really demonstrates the extent to which that is true. So Paloma, on behalf of March for Science and Youngo, thank you so much, not just for joining us, but for everything you do every day. We much love, my friend.
Thank you.
Paloma.
Thank you too for the work